This is an NBC News special report. Here's Willie Geist.
Good morning. I'm Willie Geist in New York. This is an NBC News special report. President Trump is arriving in Singapore as we speak this morning, just 36 hours or so ahead of the high-stakes summit with North Korea's Kim Jong-un. You can see there, Air Force One has just landed at a military air base in Singapore. Kim Jong-un landed a few hours ahead of President Trump and already has met with that country's leader. Let's get right to NBC's chief White House correspondent, Hallie Jackson, who arrived in Singapore ahead of the president. Hallie, good morning.
Willie, good morning to you. In just a couple of minutes, we will see the stairs pulling up to the door of Air Force One. President Trump will step down. He will be greeted by the Singaporean foreign minister here, and he will begin what will certainly be an historic trip. The question is how history will judge these talks between President Trump and Kim Jong-un, who is already on the ground. As you mentioned, he's already met with the Singaporean delegation. President Trump is expected to do that here tomorrow, and then we expect for much of the day he will be in prep. He will be holding briefings with his top staffers, including his national security advisor, John Bolton, who have traveled here with him to Singapore ahead of these discussions. And then we know the big moment will be Tuesday morning when these two leaders come face to face publicly for the first time. It is an interesting contrast, Willie, given where the president has just come from, given where Air Force One took off from about 23 hours ago, and that's Quebec, Canada, for the G7. Traditionally, a bear hug, America and its closest allies coming together. But this time, President Trump was in the lion's den, and on his way here to Singapore, he aimed some really tough talk toward, for example, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, concerned over some trade issues that he has with G7 allies, raising questions now among his critics of why the president is talking so tough against our friends, yet trying to be finding some common ground with somebody who has long been considered an enemy in Kim Jong-un. So when you step back, that is the broader geopolitical context that we are looking at here. We have come a long way, Willie, since Little Rocket Man, since Fire and Fury. This has been the most unpredictable of meetings. President Trump, remember, just a couple of weeks ago, called the whole thing off. He said to Kim Jong-un, hey, write if you change your mind and if you want to tone down the rhetoric. I'm paraphrasing. And sure enough, Kim Jong-un did, sending a letter over with his right-hand man, Kim Yong-chul, Willie, that was apparently a warm greeting. President Trump putting the meeting back on now, just 48 hours away.
Hallie, stay with us. The stairs have been moved up to Air Force One. We should see the President of the United States deplaning shortly. Lester Holt also in Singapore this morning. Lester, good morning to you.
Willie, good morning. It's really happening, and it is a surprise for anyone who has followed the events of certainly the last year and a half. I've made 4 trips to the Korean Peninsula in the last 14 months. I recall April of last year getting ready to do nightly news from an American air base in South Korea when we got word that another missile launch had occurred from the north. Things were tense. The military there still on a war footing, if you will. Their motto is ready to fight tonight. But they, like the rest of us, watching the diplomatic events overtake the threat of military confrontation. Kim Jong-un on the ground, who has been here several hours. President Trump here now. The president will meet with the prime minister tomorrow in the same way that Kim Jong-un met with the prime minister here shortly after his arrival today. He's got, of course, a large contingent. They're all staying at hotels about a half-mile apart from each other. The negotiations, the summit itself, will take place on an island, a part of a tourist island here in Singapore. That's where they'll meet in the morning session. It'll actually be Monday Eastern time, 9 p.m. at night is the time that they will begin meeting. That'll be 9 a.m. on Tuesday morning here. The president not expected to make remarks as he comes down the stairs here, but will again go to his hotel here in downtown Singapore, where, as Hallie mentioned, he will begin to get briefings. He will prepare for that meeting with the prime minister tomorrow from Singapore, and then, of course, prepare for the meeting. And there he is. There's the president now coming off of Air Force One. A truly historic moment. Of course, the First Lady not accompanying him on this trip because she is still under doctor's orders after her surgery not to fly. The president said this is a meeting that he has prepared his whole life for. This is a man who has certainly distinguished himself as a negotiator, as a businessman. and plans to rely on those instincts. There he is being greeted by the foreign minister here and other Singapore officials. The president has said he'll know in the first minute of his conversations with Kim Jong-un whether this is going to happen, whether they're going to make a connection or not. That was his gut instinct. He has tried to tamp down on expectations of the meeting. At the same time, sometimes can't help himself by dropping little hints that he thinks this is going to go well. He has said that this is one chance for Kim Jong-un to do something good for his people. The president, of course, coming off that summit in Canada, in which a bad taste was left in the mouths all around after the president fired off some tweets during his journey here. A 9,000-mile trip from Canada to Singapore, where it is Sunday night. The president now getting in his limousine and heading to his hotel. Willie?
All right, Lester Holt in Singapore for us. Will be continuing his coverage all week on Nightly News tonight and throughout the early part of next week. Lester, thank you very much. Let's bring in now Jeremy Bash, an NBC News national security analyst and former chief of staff at the CIA and Pentagon under President Obama. Extraordinary pictures here. After all the back and forth, after all these months and weeks, on again, off again, the president and Kim Jong-un are in the same place. They're both in Singapore. About 36 hours from now, they will sit down in a room. The word historic is being used. It is historic just because a sitting president of the United States has never sat across from a North Korean leader this way and at least given a photo op to that leader. What would make it actually historic, though, in terms of beyond a photo op?
Well, if you put the politics and the pageantry aside, Willie, what would make it history would be a commitment by the North Koreans to actually remove nuclear weapons, missiles, and chemical and biological weapons from their territory. That would potentially allow for normalization between North Korea and South Korea, maybe even a declaration of peace. But what I think is concerning, because North Korea is so unpredictable, so dangerous, that we're going to walk out of the summit here Monday night, East Coast time, and the president is going to say, we have a commitment to peace, a declaration of a peace treaty. And that, without the ironclad commitment from the North Koreans, is just going to be an empty promise, Willie.
Jeremy Bash, we appreciate your perspective this morning. You can get more throughout the day at NBCNews.com, MSNBC, and as I said, tonight on NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt. This has been an NBC News special report. Most of you will stay with us here on Sunday today. Others of you will be returned to your regular programming.
Hey, NBC News viewers, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.